She was forced to sit alone at her brother's wedding, mocked by bridesmaids who called her the help. Then a stranger's hand touched her shoulder. Act like you're with me. What she didn't know, the man who just silenced the entire room was a mafia boss. And he'd come to destroy her family. The champagne tower cost more than Elena Carter's annual salary. She knew this because her brother had called her 6 months ago, voice tight with excitement, asking if she could help out with the wedding expenses. Just a little. Maybe 5,000. She'd said yes before he finished asking, the same way she'd said yes to his college tuition, his first apartment deposit, his car payment when he was between jobs. Now, sitting at table 17, tucked behind a marble column near the kitchen doors, Elena watched that champagne tower glitter under crystal chandeliers while a bridesmaid's laugh cut through the classical music like broken glass. "Oh my God, Tiffany." Look, the blonde in the peach dress wasn't even trying to whisper. "Is that the groom's charity case sister? The one who, works at that sad little coffee shop?" Elena's fingers tightened around her water glass. The dress she wore, navy blue, carefully steamed, bought from a thrift store in Queens 3 years ago, suddenly felt like it was made of paper. "I didn't know the help could sit with guests," another bridesmaid chimed in, louder this time, making sure Elena heard every word. Across the ballroom, her brother Michael stood next to his new wife, Vanessa. They were surrounded by her family, the Castellanos, old money from Connecticut, the kind of people who summered in the Hamptons and wintered in Aspen. Michael was grinning, his arm around Vanessa's waist, looking like he'd won the lottery. He probably had. Elena had worked 3 jobs to put him through NYU. She'd skipped meals, worn shoes until the soles wore through, lived in a studio apartment with a radiator that only worked half the time. And for what? So he could marry into wealth and stick her at the table closest to the kitchen, next to the waitstaff and the wedding planner's assistant. Her mother had hugged her earlier, quickly, distracted. "You understand, honey. Vanessa's family has a seating chart. It's very formal, very traditional. Traditional. That was the word they used when they meant, you're not good enough to sit with us." "Should we take a selfie with her?" The blonde bridesmaid giggled. "Like, for charity awareness."
Elena's face gurned.
She started to stand, ready to leave, ready to walk out of this marble prison and never look back. "Act like you're with me." The voice came from directly behind her. Low, calm, with an edge of command that made the words less of a request and more of an instruction.
Elena froze.
A hand, warm, steady, settled on her shoulder. She turned her head and found herself looking up at a man who didn't belong at this wedding. He wore a black suit that fit too perfectly, tailored in a way that whispered money, real money, not the borrowed kind. Dark hair, sharp jaw, eyes the color of smoke. He was maybe 35, maybe older. Hard to tell. Men like him didn't age. They just got more dangerous. What?
Elena stammered.
"You heard me." His gaze didn't leave hers, but his voice carried across the table. "We're late for our dance." The bridesmaids had gone silent. Completely, utterly silent. The man's hand moved from Elena's shoulder to the back of her chair, pulling it out with an easy grace that suggested he did things like this often, taking control of situations, bending rooms to his will. Elena stood on instinct, her heart hammering. "Who?" she started to ask, but he was already guiding her away from table 17, his hand light against the small of her back. The whispers started immediately. "Is that? Oh my God, that's Adrian Moretti? The Moretti? What is he doing here?" Elena's mind raced. Moretti. The name sounded familiar, like something she'd heard on the news but couldn't quite place. Something that made people nervous. They reached the edge of the dance floor, far enough from the bridesmaids that Elena could breathe again, and she turned to face him. "I don't know who you are," she said quietly, "but thank you. You didn't have to." "Adrian Moretti," he said it simply, like he was telling her the weather. "And yes, I did." The music swelled. Couples drifted onto the dance floor for the second waltz of the evening. Across the room, Elena caught sight of her brother. Michael had gone pale, staring at them with an expression she'd never seen before.
Fear.
Why? Elena asked, searching Adrian's face. Up close, she could see the faint scar above his left eyebrow, the way his eyes tracked everything, the exits, the guests, the waitstaff moving through the crowd. Because your brother, Adrian said, his voice soft enough that only she could hear, owes me $3 million. And everyone in this room just realized that the sister he's been hiding might be the only leverage I have left. Elena's blood turned to ice. What? But Adrian was already stepping back, giving her space to process, to run if she wanted to. People were watching them now. Not just watching, staring. The bride's father had stopped mid-conversation, his face draining of color. Vanessa clutched Michael's arm, her diamonds catching the light as her hand trembled. I don't understand, Elena whispered. You will. Adrian's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Not cruelty. Something else. Something almost like regret. Your brother borrowed money to invest in Vanessa's father's real estate company. Money he couldn't repay. Money he stole from people who don't forgive debts. You're lying. I wish I was. Elena's mother appeared at her elbow. All fake smiles and panic. Elena, sweetheart, who's your friend? You didn't mention you were bringing someone. Mom, Elena's voice came out flat. Did you know Michael borrowed money? A lot of money. Her mother's smile didn't waver, but her eyes went hard. This is your brother's wedding, Elena. Don't make a scene. Don't make a scene. That's what her mother always said. When Elena had to drop out of community college to work full-time. When Michael forgot to pay her back. When they stuck her at table 17 like she was something to be ashamed of. Adrian was watching her carefully, reading every micro-expression on her face. You have a choice, he said quietly. Walk away right now, and no one will remember this. Or stay, let them think you're with me, and watch how quickly they start treating you like you matter. Elena looked at her mother, at her brother, at the bridesmaids who were still staring, mouths open. At the champagne tower that cost more than she made in a year. She turned back to Adrian and squared her shoulders. What do I have to do? His smile was small, dangerous, and somehow sad. Just don't leave my side for the rest of the night. He offered his hand. The music shifted to something slower, something haunting. And Elena Carter, who'd spent her whole life invisible, took the hand of the most dangerous man in the room and stepped into the light. The whispers started like wind through dry leaves, soft at first, then building into something that filled every corner of the ballroom. Moretti. She's with Moretti. How does Michael's sister know Adrian Moretti? Elena heard the name repeated like a prayer, like a curse. Adrian's hand was steady on her waist as they moved across the dance floor, and she was acutely aware that every eye in the room was following them. Not just watching.
Studying.
Calculating. Who are you really? She whispered, keeping her smile fixed in place like he'd taught her in the 3 seconds before they started dancing. I told you. Adrian Moretti, his voice was low, meant only for her. My family owns most of the construction contracts in New York. Waste management.
Shipping.
Other things people don't talk about at weddings. Other things. Elena's stomach dropped. You're with the mob. That's a crude term. His expression didn't change, but she caught the ghost of amusement in his eyes. I prefer private businessman with complicated interests. Oh my God. Elena's steps faltered, but Adrian's grip steadied her, kept her moving. My brother borrowed money from the Mafia? From me, specifically. Through a series of shell companies and very polite intermediaries. $3 million to be exact. He told me he was investing in legitimate real estate ventures with his future father-in-law. Adrian's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Turns out, Robert Castellano has been running a mortgage fraud scheme for 5 years. Your brother wanted in. The room tilted. Elena focused on breathing, on not collapsing in the middle of the dance floor in front of 300 people who suddenly cared very much about her existence. That's impossible. Michael wouldn't. Wouldn't steal? Wouldn't lie? Adrian's voice gentled, which somehow made it worse. Elena, How do you think he afforded to court a Castellano? The designer suits, the country club memberships, the engagement ring that cost more than most people's cars? The ring. Vanessa's ring. Michael had shown it to Elena over FaceTime, grinning like a kid on Christmas. She'd asked him how he afforded it, and he'd said something vague about a bonus at work. She'd believed him because she always believed him. "Excuse me," the voice cut through the music, sharp with forced politeness. "May I cut in?" Robert Castellano stood beside them, all silver hair and practiced charm, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. Behind him, Michael hovered like a ghost, his face pale and sweating. Adrian didn't stop dancing.
No.
"I insist." "I said no, Robert." Adrian's tone was pleasant, conversational, and absolutely final. "Your daughter is having her moment. Don't ruin it by making a scene." It wasn't a suggestion. It was a command. Robert's jaw clenched, but he actually stepped back, from a man half his age. Elena watched in disbelief as one of Connecticut's most powerful real estate developers retreated like a scolded child. Michael moved forward, desperate. "Elena, can we talk? Please? Just for a minute." "Your sister is busy," Adrian said, not even looking at him. "I need to explain." "No, you need to leave us alone." Adrian's voice dropped 10 degrees. "Unless you want me to explain to all your new in-laws exactly where their investment money actually went." Michael went white. Actually white, like someone had drained all the blood from his face. He opened his mouth, closed it, and walked away. Elena's brother. The person she'd sacrificed everything for. Walking away because a stranger told him to. "This isn't real," Elena breathed. "This can't be real." "It's very real." Adrian guided her toward the edge of the dance floor as the song ended. "And it's about to get more interesting." He was right. Vanessa's mother materialized first, all air kisses and desperation.
Elena, darling.
"We haven't had a chance to catch up. You must tell me everything about yourself."
Are you still in?
What was it? Coffee service. Elena stared at her. This was the same woman who'd looked right through her during the rehearsal dinner. "I manage a coffee shop," Elena said slowly. "Same as yesterday, when you pretended not to remember my name." Mrs. Castellano's laugh was crystal and sharp. "Oh, you must have misunderstood. I'm terrible with names, everyone says so. We should have lunch next week. I know this darling place in Manhattan." "She's busy," Adrian said. Mrs. Castellano disappeared. Then came the bridesmaids, the blonde one leading the charge, suddenly sweet as poison. "Oh my God, Elena, I love your dress. Where did you get it?" "It's so vintage." "Goodwill," Elena said flatly. 70% off. The bridesmaid's smile froze. "That's so brave." One by one they came. Her mother's friends who'd ignored her at Thanksgiving. Her brother's college buddies who'd borrowed money and never paid her back. Distant cousins who'd never returned her calls. All of them suddenly remembering she existed. All of them suddenly interested in her life, her thoughts, her opinions. All of them terrified of the man standing beside her. Elena's mother appeared again, this time with her father trailing behind, looking smaller than Elena remembered. "Sweetheart, you should have told us you were seeing someone. We would have arranged better seating." "You mean a table that's not next to the kitchen?" Elena's voice came out cold. "Foreign. A table where I wouldn't embarrass you in front of your new rich relatives?" Her mother flinched. "Elena, that's not fair." "Fair." Elena laughed, and it sounded wrong even to her own ears. "I worked 3 jobs to put Michael through college. I gave him $5,000 for this wedding. And you stuck me at table 17 like I was something to be ashamed of. We can talk about this later." "No," Adrian said quietly. "You can talk about it now, or you can walk away. Your choice." Elena's father chose walking away. Her mother hesitated, something flickering across her face. Shame, maybe, or anger, then followed. Elena stood in the center of the ballroom, surrounded by people who suddenly cared, and felt more alone than she ever had at table 17. Why are they doing this? She whispered. They hate me. They've always. They don't hate you, Adrian said. They just didn't fear you. Now they do. He was right. This wasn't respect she was seeing in their eyes. It wasn't love or admiration or genuine interest. It was fear. And for the first time in her life, Elena Carter was being seen, but for all the wrong reasons. The DJ announced the anniversary dance, a tradition where married couples took the floor, then gradually filtered off based on how long they'd been together, until only the longest married pair remained. Elena started to step back, to fade into the crowd like she always did, but Adrian's hand found hers again. Stay, he said simply. I'm not married. Neither are you. They don't know that. His eyes scanned the room with the efficiency of someone doing a security sweep. And right now you need them to believe you belong here. With me. Something in his voice made her pause. Not a command this time. Almost a request. The lights dimmed. Couples flooded the dance floor, including Michael and Vanessa, who were required to dance as the newlyweds. Elena watched her brother search for her in the crowd, his eyes landing on where she stood with Adrian. Michael's smile was desperate, pleading. She looked away. Come on, Adrian said, guiding her onto the floor. This will calm them down. Give them something normal to focus on instead of wondering what I'm planning. What are you planning? I haven't decided yet. His honesty startled her. She'd expected lies, manipulation, the kind of calculated charm she imagined men like him used. Instead, he pulled her close, proper ballroom distance, nothing inappropriate, and began to lead her through a waltz. He was a good dancer. Better than good. The kind of skill that came from expensive lessons and years of practice at events exactly like this one. You learn to dance, Elena said, following his lead easily despite never taking a formal lesson in her life. For business. For survival, Adrian's mouth quirked. When you're invited to events hosted by people who could destroy your business with a phone call, you learn their language, their dances, their rules. Around them, the room had transformed. Elena caught glimpses of faces as they turned, her mother, standing at the edge of the dance floor, actually smiling. Not the tight, embarrassed smile from earlier. A real one.
Proud, almost.
Like Elena had done something right for once. Her father stood beside her mother, nodding along to something Robert Castellano was saying, both men watching Elena and Adrian with obvious calculation. Making plans. Adjusting their strategies. The bridesmaids had stopped whispering and started staring with something that looked almost like envy. Do you see it? Adrian asked quietly, his breath warm against her ear. How quickly they switched sides. Elena did see it. The entire room had realigned itself around her like iron filings around a magnet. Not because of who she was, but because of who stood beside her. My mother looks happy, Elena heard herself say. She hasn't looked at me like that since. I don't even remember when. She looks terrified, Adrian corrected gently. She's just hiding it better than the others. He was right. Now that Elena looked closer, she could see the tension in her mother's shoulders, the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. The same expression she wore when Elena's father came home drunk and angry, back when Elena was in high school. The song shifted. Couples began leaving the floor as instructed. Anyone married less than a year, then less than 5, then less than 10. Michael and Vanessa exited, Michael's hand tight around his new wife's waist like he was afraid she'd float away. Adrian didn't leave. Neither did Elena. You hold your head like someone who's been ignored too long, he said suddenly, his voice soft enough that only she could hear over the music. Elena's steps faltered. What? The way you carry yourself. Like you're apologizing for taking up space. His gray eyes studied her face with an intensity that made her feel exposed. Like you've spent so long being invisible that you forgot how to be seen. The words hit harder than the bridesmaids' insults, harder than Table 17, harder than anything because they were true. And you, Elena said, recovering her footing, talk like someone used to being obeyed. Like the world rearranges itself around you, and you don't even notice anymore. Something flickered across Adrian's face. Surprise, maybe. Or recognition. "I notice," he said quietly. "I just stopped caring." They were among the last couples on the floor now. An elderly pair in their 80s swayed nearby, the woman's head resting on her husband's shoulder. The DJ called for anyone married less than 30 years to leave. Adrian and Elena remained. People were definitely noticing now. Her brother stood frozen near the bar, a champagne flute forgotten in his hand. Vanessa whispered urgently to her mother, both of them staring. The photographer had actually turned his camera away from the elderly couple to capture Elena and Adrian instead. "They think we're married," Elena whispered, heat rising to her cheeks. "Let them think it." Adrian's hand tightened slightly on her waist, not possessive but steadying. "Better than the alternative." "Which is?" "They decide you're not worth protecting, and I lose the only leverage keeping your brother from doing something monumentally stupid." The music swelled, reaching its crescendo. The elderly couple was announced as the winners, 53 years of marriage, and the room erupted in applause. Elena and Adrian finally stepped apart, but not before she caught the look in his eyes. Not cold, not calculating. Lonely. For one fleeting second, standing in that ballroom surrounded by hundreds of people who wanted something from both of them, Elena and Adrian were equals. Two people wearing masks playing roles, surviving rooms full of sharks. The applause faded. The spell broke. "I need to talk to your brother," Adrian said, his voice returning to that neutral, businesslike tone. "Alone. You should stay here where people can see you." "No," Elena surprised herself with the firmness in her voice. "If you're going to confront him about the money, I deserve to hear it. He's my brother. This mess is partly my fault. I helped him. I believed him." "Elena," Adrian's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "This isn't your fault." "Then let me be there when you tell him that." He studied her for a long moment, and Elena held his gaze, refusing to look away. Finally, he nodded. "Stay close to me," he said. "And don't believe anything he says. People like your brother, they're very good at making themselves the victim." Together, they walked off the dance floor toward where Michael stood, pale and trembling, watching them approach like a man watching his execution. The masks were about to come off, and Elena wasn't sure she was ready to see what lay underneath. Adrian didn't confront Michael in the ballroom. Instead, he walked past him without a word, his hand on Elena's elbow, guiding her toward the French doors that led to the terrace. Michael followed like a puppet on strings, his face shining with sweat despite the air conditioning. "Adrian, please just let me explain." "Not here," Adrian said without turning around. They stepped outside into the cool October air. The terrace overlooked manicured gardens lit by strategically placed lights, creating shadows that seemed to breathe. A few guests smoked cigarettes by the fountain, but Adrian's presence cleared them out faster than a fire alarm. Within seconds, it was just the three of them. Michael's hands shook as he ran them through his hair. "Elena, I can fix this. I swear I can fix this. I just need a little more time." "How much does he owe you?" Elena asked Adrian, cutting her brother off. "Exactly how much?" $3,200,000. Adrian's voice was clinical. "Plus interest. So roughly $4 million by now." The number hit Elena like a physical blow. $4 million. She couldn't even comprehend that much money. It would take her 20 lifetimes to save that much. "Michael, what did you?" Elena turned to her brother, searching his face for the boy she'd raised, the kid she'd packed lunches for and helped with homework. "What did you do?" "I was trying to build something." Michael's voice cracked. "Trying to make something of myself. You don't understand what it's like, Elena. Being ordinary. Being nobody. Vanessa's family, they have everything and I just wanted." "You wanted to be somebody or not," Adrian finished coldly. "So you borrowed money from me, told me you were investing in legitimate real estate development, and instead funneled it into Robert Castellano's mortgage fraud scheme." Elena's vision blurred at the edges. "Mortgage fraud?" "Your new father-in-law," Adrian continued, his eyes never leaving Michael, "has been running a scheme for 5 years. Fake loan applications, inflated property values, shell companies buying worthless properties at premium prices. Classic fraud. Your brother wanted in on the ground floor. That's not. You're twisting it. Michael lunged forward, then stopped when Adrian's expression went arctic. It was supposed to be legitimate, Robert said. Robert lied, Adrian said. Just like you lied to me. Just like you've been lying to your sister for years. Elena's legs felt weak. She gripped the terrace railing, the cold stone anchoring her to reality. Michael, tell me this isn't true. Tell me you didn't marry Vanessa to launder money. Her brother's silence was answer enough. I loved her, Michael finally whispered. I do love her. But yes, okay? Yes, Robert offered me a way in. A real partnership. A chance to be part of something big. I thought I could pay Adrian back once the investments matured. Except there were no investments, Adrian said. Just fraud. And when the FBI finishes their investigation, and they will, everyone involved goes to prison. Elena's hands went numb. Prison. Her brother. The FBI. Why did you come here tonight? She asked Adrian, her voice hollow. Why tell me any of this? Adrian pulled out his phone, tapped the screen a few times, then turned it toward her. Because of this. The image showed a document, a company registration form for something called Castellano Development Partners, LLC. Elena squinted at the screen, trying to understand why Adrian was showing her corporate paperwork. Then she saw it. Her signature. At the bottom of the page, clear as day, Elena M. Carter. That's not, I never signed that. Elena grabbed the phone, zooming in on the signature. It looked like hers. The way she looped the E, the slant of the A. When did I? 3 years ago, Adrian said quietly. Your brother asked you to sign some paperwork for him. Said it was for a business license, remember? He needed a witness signature or something equally harmless. Elena's mouth went dry. She did remember. Michael had called her late one night, apologetic, said he needed her to sign something for his new job. He'd brought the papers by her apartment. She'd signed them without really reading them because it was midnight and she had to work the opening shift. He used my signature. The words came out broken. He made me part of his fraud. You're listed as a founding partner, Adrian confirmed. Along with your brother and Robert Castellano. When this goes to trial, prosecutors will come after all named partners. But I didn't know. Elena's voice rose, panic flooding through her veins. I didn't know what he was doing. I believe you, Adrian said, and something in his tone made her look up sharply. But proving your innocence will be expensive, time-consuming. And your brother knows that. Elena turned to Michael, still gripping Adrian's phone like a lifeline. You used me. You made me an accessory to fraud.
I'm sorry.
You're sorry? The laugh that escaped her throat sounded manic. I worked 3 jobs to put you through college. I gave you every spare dollar I had. I believed every lie you told me. And you repaid me by making me a criminal? I didn't think anyone would find out. Michael's face crumpled. I thought we'd make the money, pay everyone back, and no one would have to know. But someone did find out. Elena looked at Adrian. You found out. I make it my business to know who I'm lending to, Adrian said. And when I discovered the fraud, I came tonight to expose it. To make sure everyone in that ballroom knew exactly what kind of family their precious Castellanos really are. The betrayal hit Elena in waves. Not just Michael's fraud, but every sacrifice she'd ever made. Every missed meal, every double shift, every time she'd said yes when she should have said no. It had all been built on lies. Her brother had never been the struggling good kid trying to make something of himself. He'd been a con artist, and she'd been his favorite mark. I need to sit down, Elena heard herself say. Adrian gestured to a stone bench near the terrace wall. Elena sank onto it, her hands trembling so badly she nearly dropped his phone. Michael started toward her, but Adrian stepped between them. You've done enough, Adrian said, his voice deadly quiet. She's my sister. She was your sister, Adrian corrected. Now she's the person whose life you destroyed because you wanted to play at being rich. Michael's face twisted with something, guilt, anger, desperation. Then he turned and walked back inside, leaving Elena alone with the man who just shattered her entire world. Elena stared at the phone in her hands, at her own signature staring back at her. Her entire life of sacrifice had been built on lies, and she had no idea how to come back from that. Elena couldn't breathe. The terrace suddenly felt too small, too exposed, with the ballroom's warm light spilling through the French doors and the murmur of the wedding reception carrying on like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. She stood abruptly, walking toward the stone steps that led down into the gardens. She needed space.
Air.
Distance from the building where her brother was probably telling his new wife some sanitized version of what just happened. Elena, Adrian's voice followed her, but he didn't try to stop her. She descended into the gardens, where sculpted hedges created a maze of pathways lit by soft ground lights. The October air bit at her bare arms, but she welcomed the cold. It made her feel real.
Solid.
Not like she was floating through some nightmare where her signature appeared on documents she'd never read. Her heels sank into the gravel path. She kept walking until she reached a fountain at the center of the garden, some marble monstrosity with cherubs and dolphins that probably cost more than her apartment. Adrian appeared beside her, silent, giving her space but not leaving. So what now? Elena's voice came out raw. She kept her eyes on the fountain, watching water cascade over cold stone. You came here to expose him, right? To humiliate Michael in front of everyone? To make sure the Castellanos know exactly who they let into their family? That was the plan, Adrian said simply. And me. Elena turned to face him, anger finally cutting through the shock. Was I part of the plan too? Use the dumb sister as leverage, make Michael squirm? No, Adrian's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes sharpened. You were unexpected. How convenient, Elena laughed bitterly. So you're going to go back in there, tell everyone about the fraud, watch Michael's marriage implode, and probably get me arrested in the process, since my signature is on those documents. That about sum it up. Adrian was quiet for a long moment, studying her face in the dim light. Yes, the honesty of it hit her harder than a lie would have. At least he wasn't trying to pretend he cared about the collateral damage. Then you're no better than them, Elena said quietly. Adrian's jaw tightened. Excuse me? You heard me. Elena stepped closer, her fear buried under a rising tide of anger. Michael used me. My mother ignored me. This whole family treats me like I'm disposable. And now you're going to destroy my life, a life I already barely have, just to prove a point? Just to get your money back? That makes you exactly like them. Your brother stole from me. I know. Elena's voice rose, echoing off the hedges. I know he stole from you. I know he's a fraud and a liar and probably deserves whatever's coming. But I didn't steal from you.
I didn't lie to you.
I was just stupid enough to trust someone I shouldn't have. And you're going to punish me for that. The law will. The law will destroy me. Elena cut him off. You know it will. Even if I prove I'm innocent, the legal fees alone will bankrupt me. I'll lose my apartment, my job, everything. And for what? So you can make an example out of Michael? So the Castellanos learn a lesson? Adrian's expression was unreadable, but she saw his hands clench briefly at his sides. A crack in the perfect control. People like your brother, he said carefully, they don't learn lessons. They find new victims. New ways to steal. If I don't stop him now, then stop him, Elena's voice dropped, but the intensity didn't fade. Not me. Not the innocent people who got caught in his mess. You have power. Everyone in that ballroom just proved it. Use it for something other than revenge. You don't understand the world I live in. Adrian took a step closer, his voice low and dangerous. In my world, mercy is weakness. Forgiveness is an invitation to be attacked. If I let this go, if I show any softness, every two-bit con artist from here to Boston will think they can steal from me. Then maybe, Elena said, meeting his eyes without flinching, you need to find a different world to live in. The words hung in the air between them. The fountain continued its endless cycle, water falling and rising, falling and rising. From the ballroom, someone laughed, high and false and oblivious. Adrian stared at her like she'd spoken in a foreign language, like she'd said something impossible. "You really believe that?" he said finally. "Not a question. An observation. After everything they did to you, after your brother just destroyed your life, you still think mercy matters?" "I think," Elena said slowly, "that you came here tonight expecting to find guilty people, people you could hurt without feeling anything. But you found me instead, and now you don't know what to do about it." Something flickered across Adrian's face. Not anger. Something more complicated. More human. He turned away from her, running a hand through his hair in the first gesture of frustration she'd seen from him. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter, almost vulnerable. "I've destroyed a lot of people in my life, Elena. Businesses. Reputations. Families.
I'm very good at it," he paused.
But you're right. I came here knowing exactly what I'd do, and you made me hesitate. That's new. Is that such a bad thing?" Elena asked softly. Adrian looked back at her, and in the low light of the garden, she could see the exhaustion in his eyes. The weight of whatever he'd done, whoever he'd hurt, pressing down on him like gravity. "I don't know," he admitted. "In my experience, hesitation gets you killed." "Or maybe," Elena said, "it makes you human." They stood in silence, two people who shouldn't be talking to each other, who lived in completely different worlds but had somehow found themselves in the same garden at the same moment. "I need to think," Adrian said finally, "about what to do, about all of this." "Take your time." Elena wrapped her arms around herself against the cold. "I'm not going anywhere. My life is already ruined. What's a few more hours?" Adrian's mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but close. "You have more fight in you than I expected." "I've had a fight my whole life," Elena said. "I'm just usually fighting for other people. This is the first time I'm fighting for myself." Adrian nodded slowly, something like respect crossing his features. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone, tapping quickly before handing it to her. "My number," he said. "If Michael tries to contact you, if anyone from that family tries anything, you call me. Understand?" Elena took the phone, her fingers brushing his. She saved the number, then handed it back. "Why are you protecting me?" she asked. Adrian's expression was unreadable again, the armor sliding back into place. But the crack was still there, just visible beneath the surface. "Because," he said quietly, "maybe I'm tired of destroying things. Maybe I want to see if I remember how to build something instead." He turned and walked back toward the ballroom, leaving Elena alone in the garden with her thoughts and the sound of falling water. The first crack in his armor had appeared, and Elena realized, with a mixture of hope and terror, that she might have just changed the trajectory of both their lives. Elena didn't know how long she stood in the garden after Adrian left. Long enough for the cold to seep through her dress. Long enough for the anger to crystallize into something harder, sharper. When she finally climbed the stone steps back to the terrace, the wedding reception had shifted into full swing. The band played something upbeat and brainless. Couples danced. Champagne flowed. Everyone was having a wonderful time celebrating Michael and Vanessa's union. Everyone except the people who knew the truth. Elena spotted them immediately, her family, clustered near the bar like conspirators. Her mother's face was tight with forced tear. Her father kept checking his phone. And Michael stood between them, looking like a man waiting for a firing squad. They saw her the moment she stepped inside. Michael broke away from the group, crossing the ballroom in long strides. He caught her arm just inside the French doors, his grip tight enough to bruise. "What are you doing with him?" Michael's voice was low, urgent, carrying an edge of panic she'd never heard before. "Elena, what did he tell you?" Elena looked down at his hand on her arm, then back up at his face. This morning, she would have made excuses for his behavior. Would have assumed he was stressed, overwhelmed, having normal wedding jitters. Now she just felt cold. "Let go of me," she said quietly. Elena, please, you have to understand. I said let go. She jerked her arm free, and Michael actually stumbled back a step, shocked. Elena never pushed back. Elena never refused. Elena was the dependable one, the one who fixed things. Not anymore. You used my signature, Elena said, her voice carrying just far enough that a few nearby guests turned to look. You made me an accessory to fraud, to money laundering. You destroyed my life so you could play at being rich. Michael's face went white. Keep your voice down. Why? Elena stepped closer, and her brother actually backed up. Afraid people will hear the truth? Afraid your new in-laws will find out exactly what kind of man their daughter married. Elena Marie Carter, her mother, appeared at her elbow, all false smiles and desperate eyes. She hooked her arm through Elena's with practiced ease, steering her away from Michael and toward a quiet corner near the coat check. A word.
Now.
Elena let herself be led, mostly because she was curious to see what possible excuse her mother could offer for Michael's behavior. Her father joined them, forming a small family triangle that felt more like a trap than a reunion. Up close, Elena could see the sweat on her father's upper lip, the way her mother's hands trembled as she clutched her purse. They were terrified. Sweetheart, her mother began, her voice saccharine and urgent. I don't know what Mr. Moretti has been telling you, but you need to understand that Michael made some poor business decisions. That's all. Nothing criminal. Just poor judgment. He forged my signature on legal documents, Elena said flatly. Her mother's smile didn't waver. That was a misunderstanding. You signed those papers willingly, remember? Michael needed a witness, and you helped him out. Like you always do. Like family does. The gaslighting was so smooth, so practiced, that Elena almost questioned her own memory. Almost. But she'd seen the documents. Seen the dates. Known the truth in her brother's eyes when Adrian had confronted him. Mom, he used me. He asked for your help, and you gave it. Her mother's grip on her purse tightened. Now I need you to smile. Go back to Mr. Moretti, be charming, be sweet, and make sure he understands this is all just a big misunderstanding. Can you do that? Elena stared at her mother. You want me to lie to a man who could have us all arrested? I want you to protect your brother. Her mother's voice rose slightly before she caught herself, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. When she spoke again, it was through clenched teeth. Do you want to ruin Michael's life? Is that what you want? To destroy everything he's worked for? The hypocrisy hit Elena like a physical blow. What about my life? Elena's voice came out quiet, devastated. What about everything I worked for? I put him through college. I gave him money I didn't have. I signed papers I didn't read because I trusted him. And now I'm going to be investigated by the FBI because of him. But you want me to smile? You want me to protect him? Her father finally spoke, his voice gruff with discomfort. Elena, honey, you're being dramatic. Nothing's going to happen to you. You didn't do anything wrong. But Michael did, Elena said. Michael committed fraud. Michael stole money. Michael destroyed my life. And you want me to just, what? Pretend it didn't happen? Her mother's face hardened. I want you to remember that he's your brother. That family protects family. That sometimes we make sacrifices for the people we love. I've been making sacrifices my entire life. Elena's voice finally broke. When do I get to stop? When do I get to be the one who matters? Silence. Her mother looked away. Her father studied his shoes. Please, Elena, Michael had joined them, his voice small and broken.
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. But if Moretti exposes this, Vanessa's family will destroy me. They'll make sure I never work again. I'll go to prison. Please.
You've always protected me.
Please don't stop now. Elena looked at her brother, really looked at him, saw the weakness in his eyes, the selfishness, the entitlement. Saw the little boy who'd learned that tears and apologies could get him anything he wanted. And she saw herself, reflected in his manipulation. The person she'd been. The person who'd enabled this. Across the ballroom, through the crowd of dancing guests, Elena caught sight of Adrian. He was standing near the windows, a glass of whiskey in his hand that he wasn't drinking, watching her. Reading her. Understanding every emotion that crossed her face. Their eyes met across the room. He raised an eyebrow, a question. What do you want me to do? Elena looked back at her family. At Michael, pleading with his eyes. At her mother, still gripping her purse like a shield. At her father, who couldn't even look at her. This was the moment. She could ask Adrian to expose everything. To burn it all down. To make them all pay for years of taking advantage of her kindness. Or she could walk away. Let Michael face the consequences on his own terms, without her help or her hindrance. Elena took a breath. Made her choice. She turned back to Adrian and gave a small shake of her head.
No.
Not tonight. Something shifted in Adrian's expression. Not disappointment. Something else. Something that might have been respect. He nodded once, a tiny acknowledgement, then turned away from the windows. Elena looked back at her family. I'm leaving, she said simply. Don't call me. Don't ask me for anything else. I'm done. Elena, wait. Michael reached for her. She stepped out of his reach. You want to survive this? Figure it out yourself. I spent my whole life cleaning up your messes. Not anymore. She walked away from them, through the ballroom, past the dancing couples and the champagne towers and the life she'd helped her brother build. She didn't look back. Adrian was waiting by the coat check, her jacket already in his hands. You didn't have to, she started. I know, he said, helping her into it. But I figured you'd want to leave before they followed you.
He was right.
Already, she could see her mother starting toward them, her father trailing behind. Come on, Adrian said, his hand light on her elbow. I'll drive you home. They left the ballroom together, walking past valets and photographers and guests who would gossip about this for months. Elena didn't care. She'd made her choice. She'd chosen herself. And watching from across the room, Adrian Moretti had made his choice too. No public exposure tonight.
No revenge.
Not yet. Because maybe, just maybe, there was something worth saving in the wreckage after all. They were halfway to the entrance when Robert Castellano intercepted them. Mr. Moretti, the name came out strangled, desperate. Vanessa's father blocked their path with the aggressive confidence of a man used to getting his way, but his eyes betrayed him. They were the eyes of someone who'd just realized they'd made a catastrophic mistake. I think we should talk. Privately. Man to man. Adrian didn't slow down.
No.
I insist. Robert reached out, his hand moving toward Adrian's arm in what was probably meant to be a friendly gesture, a forced camaraderie between equals. Adrian stopped walking. The temperature in the entrance hall seemed to drop 10 degrees. Touch me, Adrian said quietly, and you'll lose the hand. Robert's arm fell to his side. His face went through several colors, red, white, then a sickly gray. Behind him, hotel staff suddenly found reasons to be elsewhere. Even the coat check girl disappeared into the back room. Please, Robert tried again, his voice lower now, more desperate. Whatever Michael told you, whatever you think is happening. I don't think anything, Adrian interrupted. I know. I know about the shell companies. The inflated mortgages. The offshore accounts. I know because I make it my business to know who I'm dealing with, Robert. And I know you've been running this scheme for 5 years, laundering money through real estate deals that would make the FBI weep with joy. Robert's face lost what little color it had left. If you expose this, if I expose this, your family loses everything. Your business empire crumbles. Your daughter's marriage becomes a punchline. And you spend the next decade in federal prison. Adrian's voice was clinical, detached, like he was discussing the weather. I know. Then what do you want? Robert's desperation was palpable now. Money? More money? I can get you. Nothing. Adrian stepped around him, his hand still steady on Elena's elbow. I want nothing from you, Robert. Consider that your first lesson in how the world actually works. They left him standing there, mouth open, completely unmoored by the concept that someone with power might choose not to use it. Outside, the October air hit Elena's face like a splash of cold water. Valets scrambled to attention when they saw Adrian, one of them sprinting toward the parking area. Within seconds, a black Mercedes pulled up to the curb, sleek and expensive and utterly silent. A driver in a dark suit emerged, opening the rear door with practiced efficiency.
He didn't speak.
Didn't ask questions. Just held the door and waited. Adrian gestured for Elena to get in. She didn't move. Why? The question came out before she could stop it. Why walk away? You had the power to destroy them. All of them. My brother, the Castellanos, everyone in that room. You could have made them pay for what they did. But you didn't. Adrian was quiet for a long moment, his hand resting on the top of the open car door. Behind them, music and laughter still poured from the hotel, the wedding reception continuing in blissful ignorance. Get in the car, Elena, he said finally. It's cold out here. Answer the question first. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and she saw something in his expression that made her chest tighten. Not anger. Not calculation. Exhaustion. I've destroyed enough people in my life, Adrian said quietly. Businesses. Families.
Lives.
I'm very good at it. Extremely efficient. I've made men cry. Made women beg. Made children lose their fathers. He paused, his jaw tightening. And, you want to know the truth? It doesn't feel like anything anymore. Revenge, justice, whatever you want to call it. It's just empty. Elena watched his face, seeing the weight of whatever he'd done pressing down on him like gravity. Maybe mercy, Adrian continued, his voice barely above a whisper, is the rarest revenge. Maybe letting them live with what they've done, watching them destroy themselves without my help. Maybe that's worse than anything I could do to them. The words hung in the cold air between them. You're not cold, Elena said, the realization hitting her like a revelation. Everyone thinks you're this ruthless, unfeeling person, but you're not. You're just tired. Tired of what? Of being feared. Elena stepped closer, closing the distance between them. Of walking into rooms and watching people scatter. Of having power and no one who sees past it to the actual person underneath. Adrian's expression flickered. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. You don't know me, Elena? No, she agreed. But I recognize loneliness when I see it. I've been drowning in it my whole life. The difference is I was ignored. You're feared. But the result is the same, isn't it? We're both invisible, just for different reasons. For a long moment, Adrian didn't speak. He stared at her like she'd said something in a language he'd forgotten he understood. The driver stood statue still by the car door, pretending not to hear any of this. I had a sister, Adrian said suddenly. Her name was Maria. She was 22 when the Castellanos' original business partner, Robert's mentor, convinced her to invest her inheritance in one of their schemes. When it collapsed, she lost everything. The shame, the debt, the betrayal. It was too much. His voice went flat, emotionless. She died 3 months later. Overdose. The coroner called it accidental, but I knew better. Elena's hand moved to her mouth. Adrian, I'm so... Don't, he cut her off, but not unkindly. I came here tonight for her.
To make them pay for what they did.
To destroy Robert Castellano, the way his business destroyed my sister. That was the plan. Clean, simple revenge. He paused, looking at her with something raw and honest in his eyes. And then I saw you, sitting alone at that table, wearing that dress, being mocked by people who should have been grateful you exist. You reminded me of her. Same eyes. Same stubborn refusal to let them break your spirit. So you protected me, Elena said softly. Because you couldn't protect her. Maybe Adrian's voice was rough now, like the admission cost him something. Or maybe I just needed to remember what it feels like to build something instead of destroy it. To save someone instead of bury them. The valet shifted uncomfortably. The driver remained perfectly still. Elena stood in the cold, looking at this man who'd spent the evening terrifying her family and saw the truth beneath the armor. He wasn't a monster. He was just a person who'd lost too much and forgotten how to be anything other than dangerous. "Thank you," Elena said, "for not destroying them tonight. For giving them a chance to fix this themselves, even if they probably won't take it." Adrian shook his head slowly. "Don't thank me yet. I didn't do this for them. I did it for you. Because you asked me to remember how to be human, and I'm trying to remember what that feels like." "And?" Elena asked. "How does it feel?" Adrian's mouth quirked in something that wasn't quite a smile. "Terrifying. Despite everything, the betrayal, the fear, the exhaustion." Elena laughed. A real laugh, startled and genuine, that echoed in the cold night air. Adrian's almost smile widened fractionally. "Get in the car before you freeze to death," he said. "I'll take you home." This time, Elena got in. As the Mercedes pulled away from the hotel, Elena looked back through the rear window. The wedding reception glowed in the distance, full of light and music and lies. Her old life, the one where she sacrificed everything for people who saw her as disposable. She turned forward, toward whatever came next. And beside her in the darkness, Adrian Moretti stared out the window and wondered if maybe, just maybe, he'd found someone who could see past the fear to the man underneath. Elena woke to her phone vibrating like an angry wasp. She'd barely slept. Adrian's driver had dropped her off at her studio apartment in Queens around midnight, and she'd spent the hours since then staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. The wedding. The betrayal. Adrian's sister. The look in his eyes when he'd admitted he was tired of destroying things. Now, at 7 in the morning, her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Text messages.
Dozens of them.
From numbers she didn't recognize, from old co-workers, from people she hadn't spoken to in years. Elena grabbed her phone, squinting at the screen in the gray morning light filtering through her thin curtains. The first message was from her coworker, Jess, at the coffee shop. "OMG, Elena, is that you?" Attached was a photo. Elena's blood went cold. It was her, from last night, walking out of the hotel with Adrian, his hand on her elbow, her face clearly visible in the flash of what must have been a dozen cameras. The headline read, "Mystery Woman Captivates Moretti. Adrian Moretti Spotted with Unknown Beauty at Exclusive Wedding." She scrolled frantically. The photo was everywhere.
TMZ.
Page 6. Local news blogs. Someone had even created a Twitter thread trying to identify her.
Her phone rang.
Her manager, David. "Hello." Elena answered, her voice rough from lack of sleep. "Elena," David's voice was tight, uncomfortable. "We need to talk. Can you come in early? Before your shift." Something in his tone made her stomach drop. "What's wrong?" "Just
Come in, please."
as soon as possible." He hung up. Elena threw on jeans and a sweater, her hands shaking as she brushed her teeth. The subway ride to Manhattan felt endless. Every person on the train a potential photographer, every glance a threat. She kept her head down, her hood up. The coffee shop was empty when she arrived, too early for the morning rush. David stood behind the counter, arms crossed, not making eye contact. "David, what's going on?" He slid a tablet across the counter. The screen showed the same photo from this morning, but this time the article was different. More detailed. Someone had done research. Moretti's mystery woman identified, Elena Carter, sister of Michael Carter, who married into Castellano real estate dynasty. Sources say Moretti attended wedding to collect debts from failed business ventures. The article went on to speculate about organized crime connections, money laundering, and whether Elena was planted at the wedding as leverage. It mentioned Adrian's reputation, his family's history, the rumors about violence and intimidation. "Elena," David's voice was careful, like he was talking to someone holding a bomb. "The owner called me this morning.
He's
concerned." "Concerned about what?" Elena asked, even though she already knew. "About your association with Adrian Moretti. About what it might mean for the shop. We're a family business, Elena. We can't afford to be connected to," he gestured helplessly at the tablet, "to organized crime. I'm not connected to organized crime. Elena's voice rose. I barely know him. He was at my brother's wedding and he… What? Pretended to be with her to save her from humiliation? Protected her from her own family? She couldn't explain any of it without making it sound worse. It's not what it looks like. It doesn't matter what it actually is. David finally met her eyes, and she saw genuine regret there. It's what people think. The owner's worried about customers being scared away, about unwanted attention. He wants me to let you go.
I'm sorry.
The words hit her like a punch to the stomach. David, I've worked here for 3 years.
I know.
And you're great. You really are. But this is bigger than both of us. He pulled an envelope from under the counter. 2 weeks severance. It's the best I could do. Elena took the envelope with numb fingers.
Just like that.
3 years of opening shifts and holiday doubles and covering for people who called in sick. Gone because she'd been photographed with the wrong person. She left without another word, stepping back out into the cold morning air. Her phone rang again. Unknown number. She answered anyway. Is this Elena Carter? A woman's voice, professional and cold. Yes. This is Jennifer Walsh from the Castellano Group. Mr. Robert Castellano asked me to contact you regarding last night's incident. Elena stopped walking in the middle of the sidewalk, people streaming around her. What incident? Your appearance with Adrian Moretti at the wedding. Mr. Castellano is concerned that you may have been working with Mr. Moretti, that your family connection was used to gain access to the wedding for purposes of intimidation, and… That's insane. Elena's voice cracked. I'm Michael's sister. I was invited to the wedding. Be that as it may, the Castellano family is exploring all legal options regarding last night's disruption. We'll be in touch. The line went dead. Legal options. They were going to come after her. After everything. After Michael's fraud, after being treated like garbage, after being forced to sit at table 17, they were going to blame her for Adrian's presence. Elena's phone buzzed with another text. This one made her stop breathing. Unknown number. Saw the pictures. Moretti's girlfriend, huh? Interesting. We should meet. Discuss business. Then another. How much is he paying you? We'll double it. And another. Pretty girl like you shouldn't be mixed up with men like Moretti. Dangerous life. Would be a shame if something happened. The last one wasn't even subtle. It was a threat. Elena's hands shook so badly she almost dropped her phone. She looked around the busy Manhattan street, suddenly seeing threat in every face, every person who looked at her too long.
Her phone rang.
She almost didn't answer, but the name on the screen made her hit accept.
Adrian.
Where are you? His voice was sharp, urgent, with none of last night's vulnerability. Manhattan. Near the coffee shop. They fired me, Adrian. And someone's sending me threatening texts, and the Castellanos are talking about legal action. Listen to me very carefully. Adrian's voice cut through her panic like a blade. Do not go home. Do you understand? Do not go back to your apartment.
What? Why?
Because the photos from last night hit every news outlet in New York. My rivals think you're leveraged now. They think you're important to me, which makes you a target. She heard movement on his end, car doors opening. I'm 10 minutes from your location. Stay on busy streets. Stay around people. I'm sending you my exact GPS coordinates. Meet me there. Adrian, I can't just… Elena, his voice softened. Just slightly. They will hurt you to get to me. Do you understand? This isn't about intimidation or sending a message. They will actually hurt you. So please, for once in your life, don't argue. Just trust me. The line went dead. Elena stood on the busy Manhattan street, unemployed, threatened, and terrified, clutching her phone like a lifeline. She opened the GPS coordinates Adrian had sent and started walking toward a life she never asked for and couldn't escape. Behind her, a black SUV with tinted windows pulled away from the curb, following at a distance that was just close enough to be noticed. The fallout had begun, and Elena Carter was about to learn that being seen, really seen, came with a price, she wasn't sure she could afford to pay. The safe house wasn't what Elena expected. No underground bunker, no warehouse with concrete walls and fluorescent lights. Instead, Adrian's driver pulled up to a brownstone in Brooklyn Heights, one of those elegant, tree-lined streets where people walked expensive dogs and carried reusable shopping bags from Whole Foods. Top floor, Adrian said, guiding her up the front steps. The building's owned by one of my shell companies. Security cameras on every entrance. My men are watching from across the street. The apartment was immaculate. Hardwood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the East River, modern furniture in neutral tones. It looked like something from an architecture magazine, beautiful and utterly impersonal. How long do I have to stay here? Elena asked, setting down her purse on the kitchen counter. Adrian was already on his phone, typing rapidly. Until I figure out who sent you those messages. Until I make it clear that touching you means war, he paused, looking up at her. A few days, maybe. A week at most. A week, Elena laughed, the sound edged with hysteria. I don't have a week. I have rent due. Bills. A life. Her voice broke. Had a life. Adrian pocketed his phone and crossed to the kitchen, opening cabinets with the ease of someone familiar with the space. He pulled out a bottle of whiskey and 2 glasses. It's 9 in the morning, Elena said. Then we're starting early. He poured 2 fingers in each glass, sliding one across the counter to her. You've been fired, threatened, and chased by people who would kill you without hesitation. I think that warrants a drink. Elena stared at the amber liquid. Then she picked up the glass and drained it in one swallow. It burned going down, making her eyes water, but the warmth that followed was oddly steadying. Adrian raised an eyebrow. Impressive. My father was a drinker, Elena said flatly. I learned young. Something shifted in Adrian's expression. Understanding, maybe. Or recognition. He refilled her glass without comment. They stood in silence, the morning light streaming through the windows, the distant sound of traffic a muted hum. Elena should have felt trapped, terrified, furious at the situation. Instead, she just felt exhausted. Why am I here? She asked finally. Really? You could have just warned me to be careful, given me money for a hotel. But instead, you're hiding me in your safe house, risking your men to protect me. Why? Adrian was quiet for a long moment, swirling the whiskey in his glass. When he spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. Because you reminded me of someone I failed to protect once. He moved to the windows, looking out at the river. My sister, Maria. I told you last night about what happened to her. What I didn't tell you was that I knew she was in trouble. She called me 3 weeks before she died, said she was scared, said the Castellanos' partner was threatening her about the money. And I told her to handle it herself. That I was too busy with business to deal with her drama. Elena's chest tightened. Adrian. 3 weeks later, she was dead. His voice was emotionless now, clinical, the way people talk when the only alternative is breaking down. I found her in her apartment. Pills everywhere. A note saying she couldn't live with the shame, couldn't face the debt, couldn't survive knowing she'd lost everything. That wasn't your fault, wasn't it? Adrian turned to look at her, and the pain in his eyes was raw, unguarded. I had the power to help her. The money, the connections, the ability to make those people disappear. But I was too caught up in my own empire building to notice my sister drowning. He paused. You reminded me of her. Same eyes. Same stubborn refusal to ask for help even when you're bleeding out. Same way of holding your head like you're apologizing for existing. The words hit Elena like a physical blow. I don't. You do. Adrian's voice was gentle but firm. You've spent your whole life making yourself smaller, quieter, more convenient for other people. Just like Maria did. And I'll be damned if I stand by and watch another woman destroy herself trying to save people who don't deserve her. Elena set down her glass with shaking hands. So, what am I? Your chance at redemption? Your do-over? Maybe Adrian's honesty was startling. Or maybe you're just the first person in 10 years who looked at me and saw something other than fear or opportunity. The truth of it settled between them like snow, quiet, undeniable, covering everything. Elena moved to the couch, suddenly too tired to stand. Adrian followed, but he kept distance between them, sitting at the other end like he was afraid of crowding her. "Tell me about her," Elena said softly. "About Maria. What was she like?" Adrian's expression softened in a way Elena had never seen. Stubborn. Brilliant. She wanted to be a teacher, but she got talked into business school by our father. She hated it. Hated the corporate world, the networking, the constant performance of success. But she did it anyway because that's what was expected. He paused. After our parents died in a car accident, she used her inheritance to try to start her own tutoring center. That's when she met the Castellanos' partner. He convinced her his real estate investment would triple her money. Instead, it destroyed her. And you've been waiting for revenge ever since. 5 years, Adrian confirmed. Building my case, gathering evidence, waiting for the perfect moment to make Robert Castellano pay for what his business partner did to Maria. He looked at Elena. And then you sat at that table, alone and ignored, and I saw her. Not just physically, but the same quiet strength. The same exhaustion from carrying everyone else's weight. "I'm not that strong," Elena whispered. "Yes, you are," Adrian's voice was certain. "You walked away from your family last night. You chose yourself. Maria never got that chance. She died still trying to make everyone else proud." They sat in silence as the morning stretched into afternoon. No expectations. No performance. Just two people who'd been carrying impossible weights for too long, finally resting. "I'm scared," Elena admitted. "Of what happens next. Of who I become after all this." "Good," Adrian said. "Fear means you're still fighting. It's when you stop being scared that you should worry. And you? Are you still scared?" Adrian looked at her, really looked at her, and something vulnerable flickered across his face. "Terrified. I've spent 10 years being the monster everyone expects. And then you ask me to remember how to be human. I'm not sure I remember how." "Maybe we figured out together," Elena said. "Two broken people learning how to be whole." Adrian's mouth quirked in something that wasn't quite a smile, but was close. "That's a terrible plan. Got a better one?" "Not even remotely." Outside, the sun climbed higher over Brooklyn. Inside the safe house, two lonely souls found something neither of them expected: reflection, understanding, and the fragile beginning of trust. No seduction. No romance. Just the quiet recognition of one survivor seeing another and choosing, for once, not to look away. They came at 3 a.m. Elena had been asleep on the couch. She'd refused to take the bedroom, insisting Adrian needed it more. He'd argued briefly, then given up, taking the armchair by the window where he could watch the street. She'd fallen asleep to the sound of him typing on his laptop, the glow of the screen painting shadows across his face. The first sound was glass breaking. Elena jerked awake, her heart hammering. Adrian was already moving, phone in one hand, gun appearing in the other from somewhere she hadn't seen him carry it. "Bedroom." Now, his voice was low, urgent, completely different from the vulnerable man she'd been talking with hours ago. This was the Adrian Moretti people feared. "Lock the door. Get in the bathroom. Stay in the tub, and don't come out until I tell you." "What's happening?" "Now, Elena." She ran. Behind her, she heard Adrian speaking rapidly into his phone. "We're hit. Brooklyn Heights location. At least 4, maybe more. Send everyone." Gunfire cut off the rest of his words. The sound was nothing like the movies, not clean pops but deafening cracks that made Elena's ears ring. She slammed the bedroom door, locked it with shaking hands, and dove into the bathroom. The tub was one of those deep, modern things, solid and ceramic. She climbed in and pulled her knees to her chest, making herself as small as possible. More gunfire. Shouting. The sound of furniture breaking. Adrian's voice, sharp and commanding, directing someone. His men must have been in the building, just like he'd said. Elena covered her ears, but it didn't help. Every gunshot felt like it was happening inside her skull. This was real. People were trying to kill them. Trying to kill her because she'd been photographed with the wrong person, because she'd been kind to someone dangerous, because the universe had a sick sense of humor. The bedroom door exploded inward with a crash. Elena's breath stopped. Heavy footsteps. Someone was in the bedroom. "I know you're in here, sweetheart," a man's voice, rough and amused. "More Eddie's little girlfriend. Come on out, and this goes easier." Elena pressed her hand over her mouth to keep from making a sound. Through the crack under the bathroom door, she could see shadows moving. The bathroom door handle rattled. Elena's vision tunneled. This was it. This was how she died, in a stranger's bathroom, hiding in a tub, killed by people whose names she didn't even know. Another gunshot, this one closer. The man in the bedroom cursed, and then there was a heavy thud like a body hitting the floor.
Silence.
Elena waited, her entire body shaking so hard her teeth chattered. "Elena," Adrian's voice, strained and rough. "It's me. You can come out." She couldn't move, couldn't make her legs work. "Elena, please. I need you to open the door." Something in his tone, pain, maybe, made her body finally obey. She climbed out of the tub on legs that felt like water, unlocked the bathroom door with numb fingers. Adrian stood in the bedroom doorway, one hand pressed to his side, blood seeping through his fingers. His face was pale, sweat beading on his forehead. Behind him, the living room looked like a war zone. Overturned furniture, bullet holes in the walls, broken glass everywhere. A body lay near the entrance, not moving. "Oh my God," Elena rushed to him. "You're hurt." "It's not bad," but his voice said otherwise. "Just grazed. My men got here in time. The others are being handled." "You're bleeding." Elena pressed her hands over his, trying to add pressure to the wound. Her hands came away red. "We need to call an ambulance." "No hospitals." Adrian's grip tightened on her wrist. "Too many questions. I have a doctor who handles this. He's on his way." "Adrian, you could." "I'm fine," but he swayed slightly, and Elena had to support some of his weight to keep him upright. She guided him to the couch, the only piece of furniture that hadn't been destroyed, and helped him sit. His shirt was soaked with blood, but when she carefully lifted the fabric, she could see he'd been right. The bullet had carved a deep groove along his ribs, but hadn't penetrated. Still, the wound was nasty, bleeding freely. "First aid kit," Adrian managed. "Kitchen." Under the sink, Elena ran, her feet crunching over broken glass, and found the kit. It was industrial-sized, the kind people kept when they expected to get shot. She grabbed towels too and ran back. Adrian had his head tilted back against the couch, his eyes closed. He looked younger like this, vulnerable, the armor completely stripped away by pain and blood loss. "Stay with me," Elena said, pressing gauze to the wound. He hissed in pain but didn't pull away. "Look at me. Stay awake." His eyes opened, gray and focused despite the pain. "I'm not going anywhere." "You could have," the words came out broken. "You could have let them kill you. Let them take me. It would have solved your problem. No more leverage, no more." "Elena," Adrian's hand covered hers where she was pressing the gauze to his side. His fingers were cold, shaking slightly from shock. "Do you really think I'd let you see another person you cared about die because of power? Because of money? Because of this world?" The words hit her harder than the gunfire had. "After Maria," Adrian continued, his voice rough, "I swore I'd never let that happen again. Never stand by while someone innocent got hurt because I was too slow, too focused on business, too concerned with looking weak." His hand tightened over hers. "You don't deserve this. Any of this. And I'll be damned if I let them take you." Tears burned Elena's eyes. She blinked them back, focusing on keeping pressure on his wound. "You're an idiot." "Probably." Adrian's mouth quirked in something that might have been a smile if it weren't for the pain etched in every line of his face. "But I'm your idiot now, apparently." Footsteps on the stairs. Elena tensed, but Adrian shook his head. "My men. And the doctor." 3 men in dark suits entered, guns drawn, followed by an older man carrying a medical bag. They moved with military efficiency, two checking the perimeter, one removing the body near the entrance while the doctor crossed immediately to Adrian. "Out," the doctor said to Elena, not unkindly. "I need space." Elena started to move, but Adrian caught her hand. "She stays." The doctor looked between them, then shrugged. "Your funeral. Hold this." He handed Elena a flashlight. For the next 20 minutes, Elena held the light steady while the doctor cleaned, stitched, and bandaged Adrian's wound. Adrian didn't make a sound, but she felt the tremors running through his body, saw the white-knuckled grip he had on the couch cushion. When it was done, the doctor packed up his supplies. "No strenuous activity for a week. Keep it clean. I'll check it in 3 days." He looked at Elena. "Make sure he actually rests. He's terrible at following medical advice." Then they were alone again. Adrian bandaged and exhausted on the couch, Elena sitting beside him with blood on her hands and adrenaline still screaming through her veins. "This is my life," Adrian said quietly, staring at the destroyed apartment. "This violence, this paranoia, this constant survival. And I just dragged you into it." Elena looked down at their hands, hers covering his, both stained with his blood, and made a choice. "Then I guess we survive it together." Adrian's eyes met hers, and in them, she saw gratitude and guilt and something else. Something fragile and new and terrifying. Something that looked like hope. 3 days after the ambush, Adrian's men moved them to a different location. Somewhere safer, they said. Somewhere no one would find them. Elena had stopped asking where somewhere was. It didn't matter anymore. She'd spent those 3 days watching Adrian heal, slowly, stubbornly, refusing to rest like the doctor ordered. He worked from the safe house, phone always pressed to his ear, laptop always open, directing his empire from a couch where he wasn't supposed to be moving. But something had changed in him. Elena saw it in the way he paused mid-sentence during phone calls, staring at nothing. The way he'd watch her move around the apartment with an expression she couldn't read. The way he'd fallen silent more and more, like he was working through a problem that had no good solution. On the 4th morning, she woke to find him sitting at the kitchen table, a stack of papers in front of him. Legal documents, from the look of them. His laptop was open, showing what appeared to be financial records. "You're up early," Elena said, moving to the coffee maker. "Couldn't sleep." Adrian's voice was different. Quieter. Resigned in a way that made her chest tighten. Elena poured 2 cups of coffee, set one in front of him, and sat down. "What are those?" Adrian was quiet for a long moment, his fingers drumming against the table in a rare show of nerves. Finally, he pushed the documents toward her. "The debt," he said simply. "Your brother's debt. All 4 million of it." Elena's stomach dropped. "Adrian, I can't. There's no way I could ever pay that back. Even if I worked every day for the rest of my life." "You're not paying it back." He pulled out a pen and signed the bottom of one of the documents with quick, decisive strokes. "I'm canceling it. All of it. The debt, the interest, the contracts. As of this morning, your brother owes me nothing." Elena stared at him, unable to process the words. "What?" "Michael's debt is cleared. Forgiven. Whatever you want to call it." Adrian signed another document, then another, his face expressionless. "I'm also canceling Robert Castellano's investigation. The fraud evidence I've been collecting for 5 years? I'm burying it. No FBI tips, no exposure, no revenge." "I don't understand." Elena's voice came out small, confused. "You came to that wedding for revenge. You spent 5 years building a case against them. For Maria. And now you're just letting it go." Adrian set down the pen and finally looked at her. The exhaustion in his eyes was deeper than physical pain, deeper than sleepless nights. It was the exhaustion of a man who'd been fighting for so long he'd forgotten what peace felt like. "You can't heal rot by exposing it," he said quietly. "You bury it and build something new. That's what you told me in the garden. That revenge wouldn't change what happened, wouldn't bring Maria back, wouldn't make any of this mean something, He gestured at the documents. You were right. But Michael, he used me. He destroyed my life. And spending the rest of my energy destroying him won't fix that. Adrian's voice was gentle but firm. It'll just create more damage, more victims, more people like us sitting in safe houses wondering how we got here. I'm tired, Elena. I'm tired of being the person who breaks things. Maybe it's time to try being the person who walks away instead. Elena felt tears burning behind her eyes. This is because of what I said. Because I asked you to remember how to be human. Maybe Adrian's mouth quirked in something that wasn't quite a smile. Or maybe I'm just finally listening to the voice I've been ignoring for 10 years. The one that says there has to be more than this. More than revenge and fear and endless cycles of violence. He stood, moving carefully because of the stitches in his side, and walked to the window. The morning light painted him in shades of gold and shadow, a dangerous man trying desperately to be something else. What about you? Elena asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper. If you're letting them go, if you're walking away from all of it, what happens to you? Adrian was quiet for so long Elena thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. I'm already buried, Elena. The words hit her like a physical blow. Don't say that. It's true. He turned to face her, and the resignation in his expression broke something in her chest. I've done things you can't imagine. Hurt people who didn't deserve it. Built an empire on fear and violence and blood. Forgiving your brother's debt. Walking away from the Castellanos. That doesn't erase what I've done. It doesn't make me clean. No one's asking you to be clean, Elena stood, crossing to him. I'm asking you to be alive. To choose something other than the past. You said it yourself. Maybe it's time to build something new. I wouldn't know where to start. Maybe you start by staying. Elena's voice cracked. By not disappearing the moment things get complicated. By choosing just once to see what happens if you let someone know the person underneath all that armor. Adrian looked at her for a long moment, and Elena saw the war in his eyes. The part of him that wanted to stay, to try, to believe that redemption was possible. And the part that knew better, that understood how deep the damage went, that believed some things couldn't be fixed. You deserve better than this, he said finally. Better than hiding in safe houses. Better than having your life destroyed because you were kind to the wrong person. Better than me. That's not your choice to make. Yes, it is. Adrian's voice was gentle but final. Because I care enough about you to not drag you down with me. Because you reminded me what it feels like to be human, and humans protect the people they care about. Even if it means protecting them from themselves. Elena wanted to argue, to fight, to tell him he was wrong. But the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of 10 years of violence and guilt pressing down on him, she understood. Some damage ran too deep to heal quickly. Some people needed to walk through fire alone before they could stand beside anyone else. So this is goodbye, she said. This is me giving you your life back. Adrian pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. There's $50,000 in that account. Enough to start over somewhere new. A different city, a different name if you want it. My lawyer will handle everything, your apartment lease, any debts, anything you need. You'll be free of all of this. I don't want your money. I know, Adrian's smile was sad and genuine. Take it anyway. Let me do one decent thing in my miserable life. He moved past her, heading toward the door. Elena wanted to stop him, to say something that would make him stay, but the words stuck in her throat. At the door, Adrian paused. You're going to be fine, Elena. Better than fine. You're going to build something beautiful out of all this wreckage. I know it. And you. Her voice broke. What are you going to build? I don't know. His hand rested on the doorknob. But at least now I'm free to figure it out. He left without looking back. Elena stood in the empty apartment, the envelope in her hands, and listened to his footsteps fade down the hallway. When she woke the next morning, he was gone. No trace, no word, just empty rooms that had briefly held the most dangerous man she'd ever met. And a single note on the kitchen table, written in his precise handwriting. Thank you for reminding me what it feels like to be seen. 1 month later, Elena stood in front of a small storefront in Astoria, Queens, holding a key that felt impossibly heavy in her palm. The sign above the door read Carter's, simple, unpretentious, hers. Through the window, she could see the interior she'd spent the last 4 weeks building: mismatched chairs, painted cheerful colors, local artwork on the walls, a chalkboard menu she'd hand-lettered herself. Not a coffee shop. Not someone else's dream. A diner. Her diner. She'd used Adrian's money carefully. Not all of it. She'd put $30,000 in savings, determined to make this work without burning through everything in the first year. The remaining 20 had gone into the lease, equipment, permits, and supplies. She'd done most of the renovation work herself, painting walls at 2 in the morning, refinishing tables until her hands cramped, learning how to be her own boss. It had been the hardest month of her life. And the most honest. Elena unlocked the door and stepped inside, breathing in the smell of fresh paint and possibility. Opening day was tomorrow. The menu was planned, the food ordered, the local newspaper running a small ad. She'd hired 2 part-time employees, both women who reminded her of herself a few months ago, working multiple jobs, exhausted but determined.
Her phone rang.
The bank. Miss Carter? The loan officer's voice was professional but confused. I'm calling about your commercial property loan. There's been a payment. Elena's stomach dropped. What kind of payment? The full amount. Your property is paid in full as of this morning. The payment came from an LLC I've never heard of, Moretti Holdings? Elena's breath caught. That's not possible. I'm looking at the transaction right now. $145,000, covering your loan in its entirety. You own the property outright, Miss Carter. Congratulations. The line went dead. Elena stood in the middle of her diner, phone still pressed to her ear, unable to move. Adrian.
He'd done this.
Even after leaving, even after disappearing without a trace, he was still protecting her. Still making sure she'd be okay. A knock at the door made her jump. Through the glass, Elena saw a courier in a dark uniform holding a black envelope. She opened the door, signed for the delivery without really seeing it, and closed the door with shaking hands. The envelope was expensive, thick paper, no return address. She knew before opening it who it was from. Inside, a single piece of cardstock with Adrian's precise handwriting. You are the only honest thing in a room full of lies. Build something beautiful. You deserve it.
No signature.
No address. No way to thank him or argue or tell him he didn't have to do this. Just his words and the weight of everything unsaid between them. Elena pressed the card to her chest, tears burning behind her eyes. He was gone. Really, truly gone. But somehow, he'd left her with more than money. He'd left her with belief in herself, in new beginnings, in the possibility that people could change even when the world told them they couldn't. She walked to the window, looking out at the quiet street. October had turned to November, the trees bare and the air sharp with coming winter. A few people hurried past, bundled in coats, focused on their own lives and problems. Normal people living normal lives. And then she saw it. A black car. Sleek, expensive, idling across the street where no parking was allowed. Tinted windows that reflected the gray sky. The engine running. Elena's heart stuttered. She moved closer to the window, her breath fogging the glass. The car didn't move, didn't pull away, just sat there, watching. She pressed her hand against the window, a small gesture, acknowledgement without words. A thank you.
A goodbye.
A promise that she'd do what he asked, that she'd build something beautiful out of the wreckage they'd both survived. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the car's engine revved once. Quick, deliberate, and it pulled away from the curb. Elena watched it disappear around the corner, taking with it the most dangerous and most decent man she'd ever known. She stood at the window long after the car vanished, the note still clutched in her hand. Adrian was gone. Her brother's debt was cleared. Her family had stopped calling after the first week, finally understanding that Elena was done being their safety net. The Castellanos had their own problems to worry about. Rumors said the FBI had started investigating their business practices, though Elena didn't know if Adrian had buried his evidence as completely as he'd claimed. She didn't care anymore. This was her life now. This diner, this neighborhood, this fresh start built on honesty instead of obligation. The girl who'd sat alone at table 17, invisible and ashamed, was gone. In her place stood someone stronger. Someone who'd learned that being seen didn't require someone else's power. It required seeing yourself first. Elena turned away from the window and looked at her diner, really looked at it. The imperfect paint job. The second-hand tables. The dreams written on the chalkboard menu. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't impressive by anyone's standards but hers. It was perfect. She walked to the chalkboard and wrote the first special for tomorrow's opening. Fresh start breakfast, coffee, eggs any style, and the hope that yesterday doesn't define tomorrow. Then she added, in smaller letters at the bottom, first cup always free. Because everyone deserves to be seen. Elena smiled, a real smile, quiet and strong, carrying all the scars she'd earned and the dignity she'd reclaimed. She'd survived her family's betrayal, survived being thrust into a violent world she never asked for, survived losing someone who'd briefly made her feel less alone. And now she'd survived success. On her own terms. With her own strength. Outside, the November wind rattled the windows. Inside, Elena Carter stood in the diner that bore her name and felt, for the first time in her entire life, like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The black car didn't return. But every morning when Elena unlocked the door, she glanced at the spot where it had been and whispered the same 2 words into the cold air. Thank you. And somewhere in the city, in the shadows where dangerous men lived and lonely souls survived, maybe Adrian Moretti heard her. Maybe he smiled. Maybe he finally found his own way to start building something new. Or maybe he just drove away, carrying the memory of the woman who'd reminded him what it felt like to be human, and that was enough.